I'm Justin Davis, and this is Drone Camps RC. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Justin Davis from Drone Camps RC, and I'm going to review the CR-10 Mini from Creality3D today for you. We're going to go through this printer. I'm going to show you some things I like about it and some of the things I don't like about it. And I'm relatively new to 3D printing, so this should be a good video for you. If you're getting your first 3D printer, I can show you kind of what you're going to expect getting into 3D printing. And it's really cool because if you're into the RC hobby, which a lot of us are, I like to print my own drone parts and quadcopter parts. It's a really nice thing to be able to do here in my shop, and also print my own Tpu camera mounts. A lot of guys want to be able to print TPU, and the first question I'm going to get from a lot of my subscribers is, will this printer print TPU? And so yes, the answer is yes, it will print TPU. It'll print ABS, it'll print wood filament, it'll print PLA, which is going to be the best one for you to start out with. But I'm super happy that it had no problem printing TPU, and I printed tons of these little Firefly camera mounts for my channel to use out with some of my brushless micro quads. But this printer does come with an upgraded extruder part on here, and that allows the TPU not to bunch up where the extrusion part happens. And that happened on the original CR-10 because they had too much space. So what was happening when it retracted, the filament was bunching up inside where the extrusion was supposed to happen, and it was having clog problems. So the CR-10 had to be modded and upgraded. And the nice thing about the CR-10 Mini is that they've already taken note of all the customers and the reviews out there and the reviewers. This one already has that upgraded part on there, which is nice. So I was able to just load up my spool of TPU and just start printing camera mounts, which was really, really nice. Now, the feature of this review is going to be this mini race wing, and this was a cool little project. I'm going to put a link down below for this wing. If you want to try to print one of these, people are doing this two ways. They're doing it with a brushed motor on the back, which will make it ultra light, and you can do the brushless version of this wing as well. And when I saw this file, I immediately had to just start printing one for you guys, mainly because this thing prints in under 6 hours for all of the parts you see right here, which is kind of amazing. And while you're building this thing and putting it together on the bench, you can be printing extra parts for your wing just in case you crash it. But I did some mods on this one. I'm going to show you what I did to it to move the weight forward. The CG was just a little too far back, so I wanted my battery closer out to the end, and it flew way better and tracked way better with a battery closer out to the end. But we'll talk about this race wing now, and I'll show you some of the printing process that I did with this little race wing, and then we'll go and talk about some TPU and some longer print projects as well, like these Iris Plus arms that I printed just for an example for you. These were over 24 hours, so I wanted to see how the CR-10 would hang in there on over a 24-hour print, just to see if it messed up or not. So here we go with a little mini race wing. So before we get started talking about the wing, I have to show you the GearBest site right now. It's like around $325, but the cool thing about this printer is that it does have amazing reviews right now. It's 4.8, 10 reviews are on there, and there's a few people asking questions, which is nice because it looks like people are having a good time with this printer. And a lot of the other reviewers have already done reviews on this printer, but it has a pretty high rating with a lot of reviewers out there. And the print size on this bed is a little bit smaller than the original CR-10, but that's okay. 300 by 220 by 300 is actually pretty big, so 300 millimeters tall, which is great because that's around 15 inches high. And I was able to print these tall Iris Plus arms on here. These can be replacement arms for your Iris Plus, or if you wanted to print this entire thing, they have all the files available on a website, and I'll try to list that one down below if you wanted to print one of these. But this is what it looks like when you have the supports, and you're going to print it in a vertical fashion. And this is the one that I printed for over 24 hours, and it had no problem, and it didn't fall over, which I was kind of afraid of. I thought that the way they had the file set up, that it was probably going to be a problem setting it up in a vertical fashion. But the wing itself, let's talk about the wing. I did this twice, and I printed several other parts and replacement parts for it, but the cool thing about the wing is that it does look pretty brittle. I usually fly over tall grass, and when I crashed in the tall grass, I probably crashed like maybe 8 times, and in 8 different crashes when I was flight testing this, trying to get the trims worked out, it didn't break, which was kind of amazing. And I did a mod on this. I actually took 2 of the winglets on the end. I printed 2 extras just in case these snapped off or broke, but I ended up using them to bring the CG further forward on this wing and get my battery a little further forward, because the CG on this for a brushed version is just behind this there's a little line right here inside the wing where there's kind of a bay for smaller size servos. Mine were just a little bit bigger, so mine sat out side to side like this, which is totally fine. And I'm missing one control link right now, but and that was from my last crash that you guys will see in this video. But so I put mine out to the sides, my receiver here, a 20 amp ESC right here, and running with quick disconnect so that I could try a few different style motors on this. I started out trying an 1106 motor on it from Emax, and that seemed to be a little bit too heavy with almost too much power, and it had too much up, and I couldn't get it trimmed out right. It had too much up elevator, and it was just way too tail heavy. So I went back to a 2204 with a little larger 2.5 inch micro prop. So I have a nice thrust with it, and you're just going to put the prop on there reversed and facing forward just like that. And I have a right turn prop on there. If you need to switch motor direction, you don't have to use BL Heli with this. You can actually switch the motor wires right here. If you do it this type of setup, you can also try different motor combos. And this little motor mount right here doesn't take any time to print. That might take like 20 minutes to print yourself a new motor mount, but you can CA it on there with a little bit of CA glue, or you can put a few dabs of hot glue on there. Once I used the motor, the 2204 that I was going to stick with, that's why I ended up putting a little hot glue around the whole mount, just to make sure it was nice and durable. And I had no problems with this motor mount snapping off, which I was kind of concerned with because it was kind of thin. We're talking like a millimeter thin there, and probably 2 millimeters on that back wall where it mounts. But you're going to put the screw through this direction and mount it there. And if you put your control rods on, by the way, by all means necessary, just load up some hot glue on your control surface. I put it on the bottom one, and inside the radio I actually reduced the rates on this to about I had like 50 expo, and you want your travel limited to about 40% throw on these control surfaces. You don't want a lot of throw on this, because if you go full swing 100% throw, this guy is just going to spiral into the ground when you launch it. So if you do 40% on the throw and you do 50% on your expo inside the aileron setting and the right aileron, left aileron setting, and then your elevator, the same setting for that, you should be nice and smooth. But the biggest challenge of this wing is getting this thing light enough. So the lighter servos you can use, the lightest servos, put them as far forward on the wing as you can get them, and the lightest battery. Even this 350 milliamp is a little bit too heavy. When I was flight testing it, the first few times it was nosing into the ground, it would roll over, and it had some issues. So you want to use maybe like a 200 milliamp would probably be a better size for this. Don't go 500 on it, it's just going to be way too heavy. And originally, when I printed this wing for the first time, I thought, well, I'm just going to take some epoxy and I'm going to coat my wing with epoxy and make it nice and strong. And when I did that, that was kind of an issue. I had way too much weight on this wing, and it just felt really heavy on the bench, and I knew it wouldn't fly. So I ended up scrapping that idea and just going with straight CA, no coating on the wing. And if the wing snaps off, I just take a little bit of CA and glue it back on. That's no problem at all. You can see on the bottom it has nothing, but that's going to really reduce the weight on this wing a lot. If you want this thing to fly, it's got to be as light as possible. And also, guys, when you're making your hinges for your wing, what you want to do is use some of this Scotch. It's called tough duct tape, and it has sort of fibers in here. It's just basically packing tape, and you're going to cut a little thin strip and put it along each elevon, and that's going to make a nice hinge for you. You want to do that on the top and the bottom. And if you don't want to use this much tape, you can actually do it in pieces across here, and you'll probably get better movements, more smoother movements on your elevons. But let's go ahead and check out the weight, and this is with the battery on here, so kind of crazy. Go ahead and turn on the scale and zero the scale out, and I'll show you what I have here. And this is a super light race wing. There's probably not many micro brushless wings out there that weigh 124 grams with the battery on there. That's not bad at all. And without the battery, if you want to just fly at line of sight, you're looking at 92 grams, so under 250 grams. No need to register this one with the FAA. It's basically a toy. So I could put that 3S 350 back on there. And by the way, you can run this on 3S, and that's going to give you a better power than a 2S. And once you have everything on there, you can put your FPV camera right up front. If you want to make a sort of a Velcro detachable camera mount for this, you could do something like that, where you could pull your camera on and off the top of your battery, because your camera is going to need to be right up front, so you get your CG perfect and forward on this wing. So now you're looking at my Tpu camera mount, and you can print GoPro mounts with this. You can print all kinds of different mounts, but this one happens to be for a super popular little micro cam a lot of people are using. This is the Hawkeye Firefly, and it's 14 grams. So I put this on a lot of brushless micro quads, and I put it on this little mini race wing for my flight test, but I needed some type of TPU mount for it, because the mount that came with this just is not that great, and it broke, it cracked on one of my crashes. So I ended up doing this with the CR-10 Mini. This was perfect because I had no problem printing TPU, and I needed something quick. And these take a couple hours to print. You can take a little bit of a soldering iron and go around the middle and get rid of some of this little banding that you have, the stringing hanging out in the front here. But overall, I think it did a pretty good quality. And it has little spots on the bottom right here that you can run zip ties through as well. So any flat top quad or race wing, you can mount this Firefly to, which is pretty cool. So right here, you guys are looking at my first print with the CR-10 Mini, and right away I was impressed, because what I'm looking at here is a very nice clean print with the PLA filament. If you're just starting out in 3D printing, it's always a good idea to start out with PLA. You're going to have way more successful prints. Use a little bit of tape that comes with this printer, and you can peel this tape right off and get your prints off really easily. One of the issues that a lot of people have, though, is tearing the tape. If you're using that little scraper tool, it's like a paint scraper that comes along with this printer, you're probably going to rip the tape. But that's not a big deal, because you can just get the tape and put a new layer back on there. But I was impressed with the print quality of this. It looks pretty solid. And the first thing I wanted to try to print with the CR-10 Mini was the sort of a cable support for the back of it right there. So in the very back right there, this cable is kind of hanging down right there. You see how it touches that back rail? You don't want that when you're printing, because it's going to be an issue. It's going to snag on the back of the printer. So you don't want the heated bed to just grab and stop mid-print. It's going to ruin your print. But this is a nice little mod, and I'll try to put a link down below for this one for you guys. So now I have the power box is turned on. It has a little on-off switch on the very back, and you're just going to plug that into any US outlet. I have the US version here, which is super great. So I have it plugged into my power strip over there, and now that it's on, these things are super easy to operate. If you've never used a 3D printer before, it's almost kind of foolproof the way they have this set up. I'm going to show you how to go into the menus, but when you're doing your first print, all you're going to do is put your SD card in over on the side right here. You can also plug in the USB cable that came with it, and you can plug it right into your computer and print from something like Cura, which is a free slicer for printing 3D models. Or you can use Simplify 3D, and I bought that. It's about $150. I'd probably recommend that for a nicer quality print. Go ahead and spend the money, and you won't be disappointed with Simplify 3D. But let me go ahead and show you around the main menu. It's super simple. We have nozzle temperature right here. The current temperature is 0 degrees, or that's my current target temperature. Once you tell it to print this file, that file has a target temperature for the nozzle, and it's going to say something like 200 degrees Celsius there. It's going to show you Celsius degrees. And over on this side, this is going to be your bed temperature. So your target is right up there, and what is currently on the nozzle and the heated bed. So your heated bed is here, and your nozzle is just under there. Your Bowden tube will go up to your extruder here and connect right here. And right now I have this piece off there because I was cleaning it. But also below here, you have your current position axis where your hot end is. And this FR right here with this 100% right there, it means it's printing in 100% speed. If I want to speed that up, I can actually turn the dial and increase that. I can go all the way up to like 200% there. There is the SD card, which is not in there right now. You have your sort of timeline for the print. It tells you how far along you are, which is really nice. And they also give you the Creality3D website, which is Creality3D.CN. So if you need more information or you need to find the manual for this, not hard to find it. You can also use the QR code on the front, which is really nice that they did that for the manual for this particular model. Now over here they have another QR code. That's the Facebook QR code for their particular Facebook group, and I definitely suggest joining that so you kind of get up to speed on what everybody's printing for the upgrades and the mods for the CR-10 Mini. That's a really valuable resource. But if you press this button right here, it takes you into the main screen. You can go back to the info screen by pressing it again. It lagged a little bit there, and I can go down to prepare, and I can do preheat PLA. I can do an auto home, and that's going to bring the hot end all the way back to the beginning and reset it for you. You're going to also need to balance this bed, and I'm not going to go into that, but this bed has pretty standard balance options on the bottom. These little wheels down here raise and lower the bed on each corner, and you're going to need to do each corner and the center before you do your first print to have a successful print. But we'll go back into the menu now, and like I said, in the prepare menu, it does a lot of different options. You have the auto home. Disable steppers means to disengage the motors, because when you're trying to move this around and level it, you can't move this bed while it's locked, and it's locked and in position. So if I hit disable steppers like this, it allows this bed to come unlocked, and now I can move it around, and I can move the hot end to each corner, and I can do my leveling, and then I can do an auto home again. So that's how you're going to do that for leveling your bed. You can also preheat ABS, and let's just click on preheat ABS there, and you can see 240 there, and now you don't see the rest of the info there. So I can go back, and the bed is also going to come up to the desired temperature, but right now I don't have a card in there, so I don't have any set temperature. So I'm going to go back in, and you can also initialize card. If there is no card in there, you're not going to see it, just like that, no card. But that's pretty much it with this printer. It also has an option in here, and I'll just turn it off real quick and reset it for you. It also has an option to move the extruder head. So when you first do your first print, I always recommend that you push a little bit of filament actually through the extruder manually with your hand. Just take and squeeze this right here, and you're going to push the filament through and force some of that to liquefy and go through the hot end, because it'll get that flow going for you. When the printer first starts, it's going to make a line across the side right here and then go out to the middle. It's going to print your skirt, and then it's going to start on the middle. So pretty important that you have the flow going before you do your first print. So just go back into the menu here for you, and the way to raise it up is go all the way down here to past cool down to move axis, and then you can do it by 10 millimeters, 1 millimeter, and 0.1. So for this test, we'll just do 1. Now we'll go move the Z axis. So the Z axis is your up and down axis, and you can see here as I go up, I'm all the way to, we'll go up to 100 there. So that's going to raise it about 100 millimeters. And now once you start pushing that filament through there, you'll have enough room here to see it come out, and you have a good flow through the nozzle. So now you got a little top view of the printer, and you're looking down right now, and the reason I'm showing you the top view is that there's no motor over here on the Z axis on the right hand side of the printer. Some of the more efficient printers like the CR-10S has dual Z motors, and this one just has one at the very bottom right here on this side. So take note that this one doesn't have dual Z motors. They might do the next version of the CR-10 Mini with dual motors. For your Z axis, it'll probably be just a little more efficient at making your prints, and probably with just a little bit better detail and a little more precise movements on the Z axis, which is super important for making your layers. And this is one of the upgrades that comes with this printer. I wanted you guys to see this close up. This is where you see this part that goes across right here. It does come out this way and out this way, so it's pushed in toward the extruder motor, the stem right here. That way it doesn't let that TPU back up in this area. The original CR-10 actually didn't have this little sort of jaunt out right here off this piece. So it was flat right here, and it had too much room inside here between the rollers and this wall right here where your filament runs through. So that was an issue with the first one, but it looks like with this version, they've corrected that, which is really nice. So I like the upgrades that they did with this printer, and it looks like the printer is about the same quality as the CR-10S, which is great with the exception of the dual Z-axis motors that it doesn't have. And some of the other people were complaining that it was a little bit noisy for this power box, this power unit, but you know, if you put this inside some type of box like we have over there, this is going to quiet down a lot. You can also make sort of a fume extractor, and it will bring a lot of your 3D printed fumes outdoors. And if you're printing ABS, that's always a good idea to get those fumes out of your house. You don't really want ABS fumes in your house because they have been known to be carcinogenic. So something to think about when you're printing. PLA, on the other hand, I've heard and I've read on the online on the internet that that's a pretty harmless material to print. But remember, you are melting plastic here, so keep that in mind. But you have a lot of fun activities that you can do with the CR-10 Mini. I've done some drone parts here with mine because that's kind of native to me and my channel. But hopefully you guys will enjoy this little flight test, and this is a work in progress, and so you guys are going to get to see some of my first initial flights and crashes, and that's the way it goes with models sometimes. But the fun of it is taking it back out to the field, definitely with a bottle of CA, because you're going to break stuff. But it's cool that I printed this for basically pennies on the dollar out of some cheap PLA filament, and I assembled it with some hot glue and CA. It wasn't a hard project at all to do. But if you're looking for a decent printer that is going to be capable and actually print really nice high quality prints for you, the CR-10 Mini is definitely tops on my list right now. For $300, you probably couldn't get a better printer out there. Some of the other ones are just really hit and miss. I've had a lot of them come through my shop that just don't perform. Even on the first like 2 or 3 prints, I have like a broken printer. So that's a big disappointment on some of the other brands. And I won't name names here because they'll have an absolute cow if I start naming names. But I can be honest with you guys about the CR-10 Mini. Creality is just top shelf stuff. So anyway, guys, enjoy the flights that I did with this little mini race wing, and I hope to see you guys back on the channel later. Please do subscribe, because hey, we might actually give away a 3D printer coming up on the channel this summer. That'll be a lot of fun. So here we go with the mini race wing, and hope you enjoy my crashes. It's definitely going to take some work to get this guy going perfectly, but that's what it's all about. Enjoy the crashes, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.